Well, I think this is like an awesome time to like open up the floor to people if they have any questions for Bruce as far as things in Grand Arena. But I think it was a pretty good coverage of things, and I'd like to just give you the opportunity, Geo, to like discuss anything Ron related. Like if you want to discuss like maybe upcoming plans with the path forward for Ron, or like I've seen, I think it was you referencing like possible reputation systems and stuff like that.
Mm.
Is there anything that you would like to discuss there?
So I'm currently at a new office that Cammyyy is starting up within the United States. So and so we're meeting here and we're discussing basically right a lot of the different strategic initiatives that we have on the table, and what we can basically kind of prioritize. Yeah, Trevor. Let's hang out. So basically, some of the things that we're thinking about are, let's start from the problems, right? It's like there is, we have a strong community, and right, like when it comes to gaming, people think about Ronin, but right now, Web3 gaming, right, doesn't really have a scalable, repeatable model, and two, right, like due to the wealth effect, right, gaming coins haven't performed well, Ron hasn't performed well, right, alts generally haven't performed well, ETH has underperformed, it's starting to change a bit, which is promising, but basically, right, there's less of a wealth effect on Ronin right now. So we're talking a lot about how do we basically, right, solve this issue of being able to attract net new people into the ecosystem, either, right, converting existing people who are in crypto into on-chain users for the first time, kind of like we did in 2021, or, right, like vampire attacking or attracting users from other EVM chains onto the Ronin network. Some of the things that we have thought about, like, related to that is, okay, we're seeing basically how useful kind of these metagame or metagame/loyalty systems can be. Things like, right, the Kaido Yapper score. That's kind of more like, right, a loyalty or point system for top of funnel reputation. Things like the reason I'm playing around with the virtuals thing, right, is I'm also studying that system. There's like a virtual system, which is basically more around bottom funnel. I think like the thing that Ronin has here is because we have across the ecosystem almost the entire funnel, we have the chance to build something that would be like some sort of a, right, social graph for gamers that takes into account, right, like points from the entire funnel, right? So top of funnel, right, you could basically integrate stuff like Kaido and Cookie for top of funnel awareness, but then, right, you also have like middle funnel stuff like playing games and expressing skill in games, and then you also have bottom funnel, right, which is like staking, AXS, Ron, and also like buying NFTs and trading on dexes and things like that. So within Ronin, we have the capacity to basically build the best social graph of gamers and people who use gamified applications in crypto, and pull the levers to incentivize it. What I'm seeing is like there's a lot of like competition around TGEs, but there's less innovation when it comes to basically doing live ops for existing tokens, right? Tokens are products that you need to continue like innovating and working on after they're released. And I think that that's something that we've like basically lagged behind on. That's also why we've talked about a lot of like innovation related to app tokens, ERC20C, right? That could also be related to this reputation system, because obviously you would want to give out tokens and have sufficient incentives for this something like this reputation system, but right, like how do you also make it so that doesn't become another, right, like source of huge sell pressure on Ron or the different tokens that you're giving out? Why do you give out tokens to the communities? You want to align incentives with them for the long term, right? You want to attract missionaries, not mercenaries. Anyway, so that's something that we've been thinking about. Obviously, talking a lot about the Axie MMO, like what it needs to be. Also, like, how do we make sure that it's not just a great game, but also has a sound economic model and kind of pushes Web3 gaming economics to the next level? How do we avoid some of the pitfalls that we've seen with development and the rest of Web3 gaming, as well as, right, with some of the Axie stuff like Homeland? And yeah, we'll have an internal test for Atia's Legacy this week, so as kind of like a preparation for the summer playtest.
That was actually going to be my next question. If there's anything that you can say in regards to the MMO or anything that's kind of upcoming or a timeline or something like that. So that's cool that, you know, internal tests are happening and we're still expected to get a playtest for the summer, which is pretty exciting for people.
A question: If I fly over there, can I play? NDA.
You guys will be playing. You'll.
He's like, no.
Fine,
no. Whatever, man. Whatever.
Yeah, come over here. Anything can happen. I mean, if you literally come to my laptop, then yes, you'll be able to play, right? So.
All right, on my way.
Version.
It hasn't been released yet internally. It should be either tomorrow or something like that this week.
Okay.
I have my laptop at the new office. Trevor, are you in SF? I can't remember. I for some reason I know that you're in Cali, but I couldn't remember.
Well, that is pretty exciting. And like, thank you for like sharing that. And if there's anything else that you kind of want to speak on Ronin, like that's totally cool right now. But I think we've actually covered like quite a lot of stuff here today, like as far as Grand Arena and stuff goes. And obviously now you gave us the kind of inside scoop on what
another thing, right, is like, you know, it's always it's a little tricky to like write this out on Twitter and stuff like that. But I mean, one thing that I want to say, right, is like I appreciate the resilience of the community. Obviously, it's been hard times on Ronin. It's been a little bit tricky, right? Oh, we opened up Ronin and all these random fucking games, right? All these random games tried to come and like extract from the community. But I'm seeing the community kind of wise up. And it's like the idea is, right, you have to the community had to kind of learn, right, to do their own research and increase the quality bar, right? So I saw recently, right, some of the launchpad projects that didn't seem like super well thought out, right? Some of those games tried to launchpad and it didn't really work out, right? So I see the community wise getting smarter and doing their research, and you know, I think that's been pretty good. I also think that we have a good understanding of the problems, right? Like I always see, like, you know, I see Hantao's posts about, right, like the different issues on Ronin. You know, as long as we know what the problems are, and we can express them really well, that's actually like a lot of progress towards fixing them. The problem is actually when you have problems, but you don't express them or you don't even know what they are. Any problem that is expressed can be solved. The problems are the problems that you don't even know that you have. Yeah, regarding like also, you know, I think a lot of people are interested in like buybacks. Yeah, you know, we're working on being able to expedite those. There's like some complex like accounting and kind of tax things that can basically make that. You know, obviously we would have loved to do it ASAP. But it's a little bit tricky, but you know, we're working on being able to expedite those things.
I think that's going to be.
Yeah, I mean, we're trying to make it so that basically there's no tax kind of complication for accessing the treasury, basically, if that makes sense.
I think that is going to be music to a lot of people's ears, because that's a question I've seen come up on the timeline quite frequently.
Yeah, I mean, that's also what that's also the question that I ask internally, right? A lot. It's like, what the fuck? What's going on with that? So, you know, I'm with you guys, right? Like, you know, I'm always, if you guys are thinking about something and really want it to happen and it makes sense, right? Like, do trust that, you know, I'm also voicing that internally. And you know, sometimes there's you know, complicated things that require, you know, that just can't be. It means that something like that can't just be like done at the drop of a hat. But I do think that it's been like unacceptably long, and you know. But I think also, right, it's like it's imagine if we had executed that proposal, you know, when Ron was at $3 or $4, right? We would have basically bought high, and we would be out of firepower on the dip, right? Because all alts, a lot of alt gaming alts have dipped a bit. So I think like let's look on the bright side. We have some dry powder, some ammunition with Ron, you know, very very underpriced or undervalued.
Oh, that's gonna be, and I think that's really great transparency. Actually, a lot of people are gonna appreciate like that, like 2 or 3
A little bit
minutes.
easier to be transparent, like here, like in a kind of an intimate setting. If
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Yeah, no, we totally get that. Like, it is, you know, the second you put anything out on Twitter, right, it just gets annihilated, or like people are either going to be for it or against it or whatever. So I think, you know, having a face on the camera and talking with such transparency is definitely an easier environment to do that in. So that's greatly appreciated.
Well, no, Jiho, I appreciate you coming on, man, and learning a little bit more about Grand Arena. I'm excited to see the Banana Mog Moki out there. I'm also,
dude. I mean, he's gonna be
tweeted-
this dude is the Shohei Ohtani of Mokis. This is the fucking Soto of Mokis. Yeah, he's gonna be out there. He's gonna be making money. He's gonna be getting fans. I'm gonna be shilling him. And yeah, you know, I guess just keep me updated, man, on the launch, on the progress of the launch. I'm excited.
So it's been awesome.
I also saw a hard question. I don't want to be avoiding any hard questions. Hard question from Addict. Hard question, but is the treasury big enough to make a difference? Yeah, I mean, that's actually the thing, is I don't think it would have been big enough right at the, you know, when Ron was much higher in price and liquidity was much higher. But I think right now it's like, you know, Ron is very depressed, and there's not that much liquidity. So yeah, so you know, I think a small amount of like capital can actually go a large way in moving the price. I mean, I saw people freaking out that, you know, freaking out about movements of like $25,000 of Ron, right? So imagine, right, if we put a couple mil of ETH and stables to work, right? What might be able to happen. I also think it's just a good signal to the market, and also I think people outside of the ecosystem might not understand how the Ron value accrual works, and even if we describe it to them, right, it's not enough. I mean, it's even same within the ecosystem, right? It's like you guys, right, you're not going to believe the power of the buybacks or how the token works until it actually is implemented. So I think like likewise for the rest of the ecosystem. So I think it's also more of a symbolic thing. Trevor is asking, do you think Ronin game launching a token in virtuals would work well? Potentially. It could be a way, right, to bridge the two communities. You know, there are different ways to do it though. You know, maybe you know, it could be that giving people something on Ronin or in your game based on their virgin points or based on the tokens that they're holding could also make sense, right? You don't necessarily need to. So let's think about, right, like what was the question that I asked yesterday was how in the early days, the way that Axie got beyond its first cohort of CryptoKitty users was by going to the Decentraland community and saying, hey, if you own Decentraland land, then we're going to give you Axies. What is the modern day version of that? It's not like, hey, launching, it's not Axie, right? So back in 2018, Axie didn't launch a token in Decentraland or launch anything within their ecosystem. It was more just, okay, you own this, we're going to give you this in our ecosystem, right? So there's better ways to basically vampire. There's basically better, potentially interesting ways to vampire, right? So it's like, I understand the problem that you're trying to solve, right? There's always a difference between problems and solutions, right? So problem is you want to get people from virtuals ecosystem interested in Ronin. The solution that you're suggesting is launching a token on virtuals, but that might not be the only solution that solves the problem that we're trying to achieve, if that makes sense, right? So it's like, maybe like allowing people to use their virgin points, right, for something on Ronin or something like that could make sense too. So
awesome.